In the United States, you would never expect to have a water problem, especially contamination in the water, just because that's something you hear outside of the country, not in the United States. But one state that definitely is having a problem is Flint, Michigan. And with Flint, Michigan, they have pipes that are contaminating water with lead and causing like a lot of health problems with those who live in the city. And I mean, the federal government has done some things to help with the city not drink that contaminated water, but it definitely is not helping. One thing they have tried to do is giving out filters to those families, but again, that's something that's not going to help in the long term. So, by them replacing the pipes, obviously it would help solve almost everything. So, again, in my opinion, I do think that the federal government should help Flint, Michigan replace those pipes just because, again, it's causing such a big problem with the city and it's become something like the worst thing that could happen there just because, again, people are getting ill. So, again, um, contaminated water is obviously known to not be ever drank by anyone just because it's not good for you, for the health. Something will go wrong if you do drink contaminated water. And I mean, drinking contaminated water can make you sick, but in Flint, Michigan, it has been shown that they are starting to get long-term illnesses, and it's becoming a really big problem just because they've shown that it is starting to affect the brain and causing memory loss, and it's also affecting the body. And one big problem is that children, I mean, they don't know better to know whether or not to drink the water or whether they should. So, a lot of times children are found with a high amount of lead in their body, and it's also shown that children have a higher chance of death just because, again, they don't know whether or not to drink the water, so they're obviously drinking it. And again, once they grow up and start getting older, it's taking effect big time on their body and again has a potential of death, but long-term effects. And in an article by Atisha Hanna, it mentions in the article of elevated lead levels in children associated with Flint, Michigan drinking water crisis. Lead, they found that children under 5 in 2013 only had 2.4%. It was only affecting 2.4%. But then when the study was done again in 2015, it doubled and they have found that it is affected 4.9% in children. So it seems that they try to fix the problem over time, but again, what them trying to fix the problem by giving out filters isn't really fixing the problem just because people and children especially will still drink out of tap water and not know anything. But it's showing that over the years the percentage keeps growing just because, again, children do not know when to not drink. And I mean, the help isn't there, so obviously it's going to keep growing. And again, as I mentioned, um, with the brain, when you drink water that's contaminated, and in Flint, Michigan, it has been affecting people, and one way it has affected others is by memory loss. And again, this is because them drinking the contaminated water, it is taking effect in their brain. So that's one thing that people are having a big problem with, especially adults. They are having a big memory loss just because of them drinking the contaminated water. In another article by Cameron Jones in Achieving Health Equality, the Crisis in Flint, Michigan, and What Should Be Done Next, the first thing that was noticed when they first started getting contaminated water was the discoloration in the water, and then also there was an odor, which would be obvious. But then the first sign that people started getting with contaminated water was rashes on their skin and big time hair loss. So from that, I mean, that shows that there's something wrong. I mean, people do have to shower, and I mean, there's not there people can't have always the time to boil water to make it clean. And even then, I mean, those pots and pans, whatever they boil, will have that lead still stuck in it and all the bacteria that may be in it still. So in the end, people do have to deal with that problem and are having to face, again, having hair loss and rashes that, I mean, that also mentioned in the article that are very painful just because, again, the bacteria is causing all that damage to a body. And again, if without the federal government not fixing the problem, it will continue to be a bigger problem and keep growing just because of the fact that the pipes are not getting replaced and they're wanting to use other remedies. And again, from this, a plan can definitely be used. So, I mean, one plan I think could be the biggest solver of this is by the federal government helping to pay to replace the pipes, and obviously by then they could have the cleaner water and not have lead in the pipes. So I mean, it another thing could also be is if like the city were to raise a little bit higher taxes. I mean, even though Flint, the people of Flint, Michigan, do not make much money, I mean, a little bit more tax could be taken out just to help their own city. And I mean, I'm pretty sure people would want to have that just because they wouldn't have to deal with the illnesses or the rashes or loss of hair. So, I mean, in another article from that's called Corroded Trust by Charlie LeDuff, it mentions how President Obama gave $250,000 to the city to help remove the lead in the water, but again, that's only to help remove the lead, not replace the pipe. So by removing the lead, again, they're trying to find other remedies to avoid spending all that money on the replacing the pipes, but it's not doing anything better. Like again, I mentioned in the other article, it is still growing, and I mean the percentage has doubled. So by them not replacing the pipes, it's only making things worse and a bigger problem to those people that live in the city. And another thing that could be done, if possible, is set up a donation site where people around the country could help donate money to this city. And I mean, people could donate a small amount, a big amount, and it would definitely, I'm pretty sure, helps be able to replace the pipes if they did save money. Although this plan does seem easy to some people may not agree with this just because they do not live in the city, so they would find ways of not wanting to replace the water just because again they're not part of that problem. And in an article in the Toxic Tap by Josh Sanborn, it mentions how Hillary Clinton said how poor people in Flint, Michigan, is the majority of African American who have been drinking and bathing in lead contaminated water, and mentions how if it were rich kids, there would already have been an action. So with this comment that Hillary Clinton made, it shows how people again will blame the city for not having money just because um, they again the people do not make money, and seeing that majority of the people are African American, they will also take that as a reason to not donate money just because they see that people they still think back about segregation, and they will see that African Americans still live there and make that the decision of seeing how they are the problem of this, which is not the problem because they had no control over the pipes. So, um, I mean, this action, I mean, people still are with, and like Hillary Clinton mentioned, it's something that other people may agree on. But again, I do believe that the federal government should help. And I mean, overall, again, this will be a problem until it gets fixed. If it did, obviously, there would not, I mean, there would be people with still high levels of lead, but then it could help others remove the amount of lead taken into their body. So it could also remove the illnesses. And again, although this does seem easy to help make donation sites, raise taxes, or have money given by the federal government, people will again be against it just because they see how Flint, Michigan is. The city is not the best, but they will still fight against the problem and not take the side of helping the city. But again, um, the federal government should be doing something about this just because so many people are getting ill and it's just becoming a bigger problem.